Hi, my name is Logan Grote, and we are ABAL Therapeutics. The average lifetime cost of care for children affected by autism is $3.2 million. And that was the price tag attached to my co-founder's brother when he received his diagnosis. At the age of 3, he was nonverbal and on track to require in-home care for the rest of his life. However, this is him today. He is no longer diagnosable as autistic by a third party and was just elected senior class president of Iowa City High School. At ABAL, it's our mission to ensure that every child affected by autism has equal access to the tools and treatment that made his story such a success story. And his success is mostly thanks to ABA therapy. ABA, or Applied Behavioral Analysis, is the gold standard in innovative care for kids with autism. It is so effective that it can reduce the lifetime cost of care by as much as 75%. And it achieves most of these gains through an incredibly simple system of prompt, reward, repeat. A child is prompted to perform some therapeutic action, they're rewarded for doing so, and that process is repeated over and over again until these new behaviors become second nature. Here's an example of what ABA looks like in the clinic today.
Look.
The child is prompted to look at the therapist off screen. And when she makes eye contact, she gets her tablet back. She's rewarded. And this process is repeated over and over until eye contact becomes a natural part of daily conversation. And that's it. That should be the end of the story, right? We have an incredible therapy. The kids who undergo it benefit massively. We all go home. But unfortunately, ABA as it exists today is rife with problems. It is incredibly labor intensive, requiring as much as 40 hours a week of one-on-one care with a professional therapist in the clinic, meaning that each therapist can take on at most 1 or 2 patients at a time. This leads to wait lists that can easily exceed 18 months and costs that can exceed $100,000 annually. In addition, if every clinic in the United States was working at peak capacity, fewer than 35% of kids would have access to behavioral therapy. At ABAL, we are empowering each therapist to do more by automating prompt, reward, repeat. You saw in the last video that the child was using a tablet. This is not an anomaly. In fact, it's standard practice to give children diagnosed with autism a tablet as early as possible to facilitate communication. And it has become a perfect platform for automating prompt, reward, repeat. We're turning that screen into a powerful therapeutic tool by allowing therapists to remotely administer, track, and modify exercise regimens just like they would in the clinic. That eye contact exercise you saw is just one of hundreds of exercises that we are automating. Using the tablet recreationally, he's prompted to make eye contact. The camera tracks his eye motion, and when he makes eye contact, he's rewarded with additional screen time. Prompt, reward, repeat, all without the need for direct therapist oversight. Now, we sell our software directly to clinicians on a subscription model who then distribute it to their patients. Because we decrease the number of hours that each child is required to be in clinic. We increase the capacity of these clinics. We increase the number of patients that each individual therapist can see, thereby increasing clinical revenues, bringing down the cost to families, and massively increasing the number of children who have access to care. Now, our product has a unique market opportunity in that our product directly affects the size of our addressable market. Because we directly increase clinical capacity, each update, each iteration increases the total number of children who have access to care, as well as our revenues. There are currently 740,000 children in the United States affected by autism, and that number is growing every year, and fewer than 270,000 of them can receive care. In total, there's a $1.7 billion market opportunity for our product in the US alone. Now, with a problem this large, there are bound to be other people trying to solve it. Our competition comes primarily in the form of data tracking companies and telehealth solutions, which are great for shaving off a couple hours of paperwork or for saving the occasional car ride, but none of them fundamentally increase clinical capacity. None of them allow a single therapist to treat more patients. In other words, our competitors streamline the status quo while we disrupt it. And this is a solution that clinics are excited about. To date, we have 3 letters of intent from 3 major ABA clinics representing 435 therapists. They've each agreed to support ongoing development, to participate in beta testing, and to pay $500 per therapist per month for the final iteration of our product, meaning that these 3 clinics alone represent a potential annual revenue of $2.6 million. Last year, we validated the need for our product with our letters of intent and received a pending patent on our distribution model. Then in October, we began a family beta that included about 20 families in the local Iowa City area. Then last week, and we're excited about this, we launched in our first 2 pilot clinics, one locally in Cedar Rapids so we can be on site, and one in Georgia. In May of this year, we'll be transitioning into a paid beta period where we'll begin focusing heavily on clinic acquisition, finally transitioning into our commercial launch in October of this year. By the end of 2018, it's our intent to have 100 clinics on our platform. ABAL is a group of engineers and developers who are united by a social cause. My background is in computer science, business strategy, and design. Seamus Rader is a biomedical engineer who has spent years providing in-home care to children with autism. And Max Salinger is our full-stack rockstar developer who's been developing professional applications since he was 12. We've partnered with an incredible advisory board. Pete Polaris and Diane Demeters are both founder CEOs of large ABA clinics, and they've been instrumental in helping us understand both the clinical and business needs of ABA providers. Amato Guloy is a VC-backed digital health entrepreneur who's been helping us think about getting from user 0 to user 1. And John Courtney, a former VP at Intuit and eBay, has been helping us think about getting from user 1 to user 10,000. In addition to the typical startup advisory board, we've also formed a science and ethics board to ensure that we hold ourselves to the highest possible standard. Professor Kevin Ayers at the University of Georgia is the world's leading expert in the use of apps and software for the education of children with autism. With more than 40 papers published in that narrow topic alone, he is the most cited author in the space. And he is so excited about our project that not only is he running our initial clinical studies out of his lab, but he's paying for it out of his own grant money. We're continuing to build out this board to ensure that we put patients above all other concerns. And this brings us into our financial projections. Our primary cost, as you can see, is R&D, and the vast majority of our income is through recurring subscription revenue. We project that we can be profitable within the next 2 years without taking on additional funding. In addition, our business model is incredibly sustainable. Our cost of goods are primarily customer service, onboarding, training, and server costs, which leaves us with a gross margin of more than 90%. This money will be funneled back into R&D and marketing so that we can expand the total number of clinics we reach, the number of patients within each clinic that our product is applicable to, and the total number of users on the platform. But more than revenue, these numbers represent the lives of the children that our product will directly impact. His story is a success story. Today, he is an undergraduate at the University of Iowa studying political science and ethics. And it's thanks to ABA that he was able to live the life that he intended. At ABAL, it's our mission to ensure that every child affected by autism, regardless of their circumstance, has equal access to an opportunity to success. Thank you very much.
Very nice presentation and clearly a need for people. Could you talk to me a little bit about how the therapist actually uses this? How often do they check in with the child? Is this like a homework assignment? How's it tracked?
So initially it'll be, there's a transition period. So initially it'll be used primarily in the clinic to make their workload lighter. Then they'll start sending it home as homework. And then eventually it'll replace clinical hours directly and be able to be distributed to people who are on that wait list, who are 18 months out from having a care provider. They can receive quality care while they're waiting.
And you mentioned it unlocks screen time.
Yeah.
Have you done any, there's a lot out there about how much damage it's doing to give kids too much screen time. So how does that play off?
So there is a lot of research about screen time. Kids with autism, it's an incredible boon for them to be able to use tablets to communicate. Some of the best applications in the space are communication apps on tablets. And they're also very deterministic environments. They're environments where these kids are very comfortable. And so these skills are able to progress more rapidly. If we look here, there's actually excellent research that skill acquisition on tablet-based devices rather than direct in-therapy hours, skills accumulate as quickly, if not more quickly. So it's a great environment for them to learn in. And if they're going to be on the tablet anyways, we might as well turn it from a babysitter into a therapist.
Oh, I like that. Add that to your presentation. That was a good sentence.
It's in the longer draft.
Yeah.
I had a question around,
Yeah.
from the perspective of telemedicine use, and basically the model here is similar. What does this do to the workload for the average therapist? Are they able to see more patients in a given amount of time? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. That's 100% the goal. Right now, the cap is absolutely 2 patients. You're not taking on more than that. They're 80 hours in the week. Our early numbers that we've gotten from the clinic in Georgia, where we're working with Professor Kevin Ayers, suggest that we can offload 20 to 30 hours, meaning each therapist can take on maybe 4, maybe 6. We're not sure if there's an upper bound yet, but we're looking for it.
So there's an income possibility for them as well.
Yep, absolutely.
That's great.
Really wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Wonderful thing you're doing. I've experienced children with autism closely. It's amazing thing you're doing and working on. So just big props for that alone. I also thought the business model is really interesting. But before I get to the business model, I also thought it was great that you're stacking the deck by aligning yourself with the third-party experts in the field. You know, really smart to have somebody willing at an institution to contribute some of their grant money towards your effort is also really exciting and certainly very telling. So congrats on that too. The business model I thought was really interesting. This is going to sound really goofy, but I know folks who started Zumba. You know, if you know Zumba.
Yeah.
And what I thought that was so interesting about that was that their customers were the instructors. Their customers were not the people who were actually signing up and going to classes.
Right.
But at the end of the day, there are incredible revenue streams to be derived because they have that notion of the brand, and it's a brand you join, right?
Right.
People who do Zumba are very, seemingly passionate about that
Religious.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yes, so I think the model lends itself to a lot more than you may actually be giving it credit. I hate to actually focus on the business side, because I think what you're doing culturally and socially and for the wellness of people is so fantastic. But it still is a business, so thinking about it as a business, I do think it's great to be able to free up time for more people, to help more people, to have a model that is pretty sustainable and has recurring, ongoing, predictable revenue is great. But I just wouldn't forget that there's this incredible ancillary stream beyond just charging, if you will, $500 per player.
Yeah.
Per month. I think that's fabulous too, but just don't forget there's even more after that.
We're absolutely looking into alternative business models. We have considered a per-user model as a potential way to increase revenues. They have differing opinions about that, depending on whether they're in a public health focused or a billable hour focused insurance market.
Yeah, and I'm sure by age and stage, there are different need states.
Yeah.
So, talking about eye contact is such a really critical thing.
It's
for
shockingly
for autism.
pervasive.
Yeah, it's an incredible thing.
Yeah.
Looking at technology and looking at things like Apple and the iPhone 10 or X, depending on your preference, and its ability to do retinal scanning and supposedly be far advanced compared to the competition. There's so much stuff still coming yet.
Yeah.
So I wonder, as you get older and these children move from being children and looking at an iPad and getting a reward for looking, what happens is they progress and they get older. So the idea of also tacking onto phones, other devices that are doing retinal scanning, you could just keep sort of reinforcing these things.
You could almost create an entirely new industry of ABAL content, which would be really neat. You could empower the clinicians to come up with their own and have their own channels and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
We're actually
Ecosystem
working on
around
that.
developers.
That'd
Exactly.
be very interesting.
We're working on that exact thing. That's
Cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
really
Yeah.
early stages.
A
but
developer
yeah.
ecosystem.
That's where the meat of the money is, and then the benefit to the patient is the goodwill.
Well, and it also keeps improving because then you have a ecosystem of developers who are constantly working to create new and better So it just, it
Everyone's working
exponentially
for you.
grows.
Yeah.
I'm with everybody. I thought the presentation was great. Your whole manner when you present, actually, if we just talk about that for a minute, your voice, your tone, your presentation, I think that it's just really good. You're good at it.
Thank you.
So good to be the face of this brand. Patents, I always tend to go there. I don't know that, I think there's a sense of obviousness that the patent offices would probably, I don't know that you'd get a patent, but I
Yeah.
don't think you need a patent. This is one of those situations where I think that you build it with the community and you
Yeah.
could just own the market. We have autism in our family, not my immediate family, but my cousins, and it can be quite severe. And
Yeah.
in some cases, I think it's more than just the eye contact.
Oh,
And-
absolutely.
Yeah.
Eye contact was just an example. It's a massive library, hundreds of exercises,
Right.
full gamut.
Right. And I think that also there's a degree at which the therapist does need to be there, even with this kind of program. So I love the fact that you're improving the scalability of the therapy.
Yeah.
But I also know that to go get a diagnosis can be in upwards, at least in the Bay Area, of $9,000 per child. And so, just think about the whole gamut of autism and the whole spectrum of autism,
Yeah.
and not just this little piece.
Absolutely. It is not our intention to replace therapists. There will always be things that therapists are needed for. It's our intention to build a better scalpel.
Yeah. Great.
With that, please join me in thanking Logan and the University of